Good evening, everyone. Let's start.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Akriti. Good evening,
Good evening,
Akila.
sir. Happy birthday.
Sir has left the meeting. You can wish him in the group.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you all like to open your cameras or have you worked on your assignments? Can we discuss the assignments? Akila, Akriti.
Ma'am, can I turn on after few minutes? There is some lighting problem.
Sorry?
There is some problem in lighting, ma'am.
There is some problem in lighting. Acha, okay. So you cannot open it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. But have you worked on your assignment?
Yes, ma'am. I have worked on, but at last part, I think I could improve it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I am ready to present, but I think in last part I am not good enough.
Good, Akri. Whatever is there, it's fine. It's not a final presentation. Akila, have you done your presentation? You worked on it?
No, madam, I didn't.
Why not? You've not given the last presentation also, Kila. That's not how you're going to learn anything.
No.
Everything
Yeah,
will
both.
just be in the, on the surface, and you won't be able to understand these coaching styles and practice it.
Okay.
Neha,
Both.
have you done that? Good evening. And
Tomorrow we will do, ma'am.
yeah, so let's do one thing. Any questions you have regarding the presentation, you can all ask those things today. And then maybe tomorrow between 9 to 11, then we can have the presentations and mock sessions, right? That we planned earlier. Okay. Niveda, you want to
Okay,
say
ma'am,
something?
Actually, I forgot about that, ma'am. I'm sorry.
You guys were so busy in everything that you completely forget. I don't
Yes.
forget anything. I remember all
So
the
sorry,
things.
ma'am.
No problems. No work today. See, it's very important for all of you side by side taking over all these things because otherwise, what will happen is everything will remain on the surface, superficial learning. Then it will not really go inside your subconscious mind and you won't be able to understand how you're going to practice it on other people. Right? That's very important. Camera is a problem today. So, any questions that you have regarding assignment? Anything that you have not understood?
Ma'am, how to pick up the styles? Actually, I didn't understand that.
Any style that you can pick up. See, when we are talking to some
Means
client,
how to implement or how to give explain about that.
so for example, you picked up any disease, right? As a title, that this is a particular problem a client have come to us with. So let's say emotional problem. There is a stress that the client is facing. Now, when you understand that goal setting is one of the technique that can be used, a coaching style can be used, and a coaching model can be used. And you already know yoga and meditation really well. You will have your content ready, which is yoga and meditation, right? For Akriti and Santoshi, it is basically the emotional care coaching. So more from the psychological tools, right? So that is your content and that is your knowledge, which is ready. Now your content and knowledge has to basically find a shape. through which you are going to convey everything to your clients. Right? Now, these coaching styles and goal setting models are basically those techniques through which you are going to convey everything to your client. Right? So, for example, you have chosen a coaching style which is called instructional based, right? So, you have a client who you understand that this person is going to understand each and everything only in an instruction based model, right? He or she doesn't want anything to do in a partnership way. He doesn't want anything to be in democratic way. So, everything this person is going to understand is purely from the instructional point of view. So, how are you going to design that? This is your chart for the next 15 days. These are the asanas you are going to practice. These are the techniques that I am teaching you. You are going to practice this. This is the emotional technique tools that I am going to give you, and this is how you have to practice it. So, this is how a coaching in style and model is collaborated with your knowledge and content. Right? So simply, so when you're presenting it in a presentation right now for the assignment, what you have to do is pick up a topic, whatever problem you want to talk about, your content, that this is what you know, you want to give the solution, and in which style you want to implement that solution. Because for every coach, it is very important that we follow one particular path most of the time, so that uh, we are forming a very good partnership, very good collaboration with our clients. Because it's a very, we are not psychologists, so psychologists follow a different kind of pattern where they give healings, they hear everything from the client, and then they give them some medicines, all those things. So we have our content which is ready. We are therapists in a very different from alternative therapists basically, and we have our content which is very powerful and very useful, and it has no side effects. So anybody doing relaxation, anybody doing meditation, anybody doing psychological tools and techniques, they will never have any side effects. So you are very, very sure about it. Now, a different kind of people will come. So according to their knowledge, according to their reactions, initially in 1 or 2 sessions, you have to gauge that, what kind of people these are, what kind of style I can work with, so that I can get to know more about this person. Because no matter what, even if you take 2 or 3 sessions, it takes at least 1 month time. That means approximately 6 to 7 sessions to understand everything, the core problem, the root cause problem of anybody's problem that they have come to you with. Physical problems are much more easier to understand. Emotional, spiritual problems are very difficult to understand. It takes more time than usual. Right? So this is how you are going to collaborate management techniques, which is coaching styles and coaching models, into your routine with your clients. Right? We will do some mock sessions tomorrow. I'll surely show you, but I wanted everyone to be there so that, this is a very important thing to understand in a mock. How are we going to do? So mocks are basically trials where I become your client and you ask me question, or you become my client and I ask you question, and I'll show you how we can actually handle the client. So we will do it tomorrow. So with your presentation, so tomorrow Sundays I want to keep as an exercise day, where we do a lot of exercises, meditations, relaxation techniques, different kind of things, and presentations.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions? Akila, Rati?
Ma'am, first and second presentation both look same, right, ma'am?
Sorry?
Presentation assignment, ma'am. First assignment and second assignment both look same only, right, ma'am?
Yeah, first assignment was basically about we have not discussed coaching styles by then. So we did not discuss about coaching styles. We talked about your research. How are you going to research? Here, because now we have completed this topic of coaching style and coaching technique, coaching model, so then you can collaborate that also. So that's the difference. You can continue in the same presentation if you have presented earlier. I think you have not presented, yeah? So you can continue that, yeah. Both the presentations together you can do. And people who have already presented once, they can actually include in the same. So suppose we gave some problems like diabetes and PMS and all those things. So you can include in that same presentation what kind of coaching style and model you feel is more suitable as per your personality and will work better. Okay, so it can be just an extension to whatever we have discussed. So let's start, let's move ahead, and then let's talk about other topics which are there. Just give me a second, I'm just opening. Yeah. So today we are going to talk about what is ethics have to do in our day-to-day problems when we are becoming a life coach. So it's one of the very sensitive topics, also very important ones. That what exactly ethics has to do in life coaching. Right? So what do you think? What are ethics and why they are important? Any one of you? What do you understand by the terminology ethics, first of all?
Follow some rules kind of.
So I could not hear the entire line, Akila. Some of the things were missing.
Madam?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah. Let's follow some rules and
Right. So ethics is
discipline.
following some rules, correct. So Divida is saying should be confidential and privately understand. Yeah, that is also true. But what is ethics in general life? So for example, you have to follow, we say that, people should follow some ethics. What are these ethics that we are talking about?
Moral value, ma'am.
Yeah, one is moral value, very good.
Integrity and
Yeah, integrity can be one of the ethics, but what is major term for ethics that you understand? How you can describe it? And why it is important to have ethics? Is it important to have ethics in our life?
yeah.
How do we consider ourselves ethical and other people non-ethical?
Live as we thought and as we speak.
Sorry?
Living as we thought and as we speak means speaking anything and living
That is more
right.
authenticity. Yeah, authenticity, that is more towards that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Ethics are basically like, Akriti said, they are a set of moral values that we keep for ourselves. Right? These are values which have been imbibed or, inculcated in us from our childhood. For example, people say honesty is the best policy. So honesty becomes our moral value, or maybe one of the ethics that we keep following on the entire thing. Right? So moral values help us not go towards the criminal path or towards becoming a bad citizen. And that is why they always ensure that whatever you're doing in life is always correct and right as per the morality. Right? Though again, moral principles are designed by humans, so some people may not consider some things as ethical, some people may not consider something as moral values, right? Because the degree to which these things are performed, for example, even we say that we are honest people, honesty is the best policy. But sometimes when we are getting late for office, we always say, some lies also we say that the tire got punctured, we got late because of something, somebody died. I don't know how many times the grandfather and grandmothers have died during since college to now, right? So all these things also. So the degree to which we are becoming dishonest prescribes that what kind of ethical and moral values we carry with us, right? So why do you think that it is important in life coaching to have ethics?
For unbiased
Uh,
opinion, ma'am.
People
Sorry,
want
आकृति full नहीं
trust
आया
on
आपका sentence. Some part is missing.
For unbiased opinion for
For
the
unbiased
clients.
opinion. Yes, very good. Right. Yeah. Who was speaking next? Neha, you were trying to say something?
without ethics, client will not trust on us if we are not ethically
Right.
strong.
Correct. Very true. So suppose if you find out that some doctor is not ethical, will you go and go to that doctor once again? Even in medical lines, when people pass out from MBBS or they do MD or any other thing, they actually take an oath. That oath is on the ethics, that whatever they are going to do, all the practices of medical that they have learned, they are going to follow the oath and ethical values that has been taught to them as a part of the course, so that they never become unethical. Their practices on people, because somebody's life is in their hands, so it's very important that they follow that moral background or moral and ethical duties of theirs. Right. So similarly for every life coach, because you're dealing again with people's problem, you're dealing with people's emotions and physical problems. So it is very important, though we do not really sign an agreement with a life coaching institution. So maybe we are not going to, because we are giving you this training. We're not going to give you that something as an oath or a signature, but it's a very integral part of life coaching is that we understand everything that we are practicing should be under the moral values, right? So how ethics are basically defined as per the dictionary, or maybe for the life coaches, that coaches may use an array of titles ranging from coach to consultant to facilitator. You might call it yourself anything. Each coach measure their progress differently. The intention is always to assist the client in achieving their goals and transformation in a manner appropriate to the client using sustainable strategies. So it's very important that whatever you're using, any kind of techniques, any facilities, any kind of goals, you need to understand that you are going to use it for the progress and transformation of your clients. Right? The second part says that due to the personal nature of most coaching relationships, the ethic coach provides the frameworks and values upon which professional coaches best base their practice. Right? So your practices should be based upon each and every ethical code that we are going to discuss now onwards. Ensure that in each practice, whatever whatever title you want to use yourself as yoga life coach, you want to call yourself yoga instructor, anything that you're going to use as a title, but ensure that you are following this ethical code moving forward. Number one is integrity. So integrity again has different meaning for different people, from honesty to I don't know what all people really consider themselves as integrity. But why do you think that integrity is important in as a life coach? Don't read it, just from your own perspective. Why do you think that integrity is important?
As per my view, without integrity, nothing works.
No, no, everything works without integrity. The world is going on and on. Yeah, a lot of people still follow. Yeah, but as a life coach, my personal belief is that because you're a life coach and you are dealing with complex human emotions, anything that you are saying and you are putting it across to people, if you have not practiced and researched thoroughly, so that integrity does not mean that you are knowledgeable and you know what your competencies and skills are. Integrity is all about being honest. So that honesty comes from first from within, that you are honest with yourself, that you have practiced and researched everything about your subject in details, and then you are practicing it on others. So that's the first part of integrity. The second part of integrity, which is very important, is that being truthful to the people, right? Whatever you know about them, whatever you have got to know about that, it's very essential that you let them be aware about the findings that you have found out, right? And third part of integrity is that whatever is happening between you and the third party, I mean the client, you're not going to use it against that person ever. Because we come across so many personal things about the person. Sometimes any of the notes go haywire, sometimes any of the information go haywire, and you suddenly understand that you have a conflict with this person, and suddenly you realize that I have a conflict with this person, so let me use this information against this person and let me take revenge. So becoming vengeful using their personal data and information, sometimes what happens is people come to you, they take your sessions, they don't pay. So not paying is their ethical background. But from your ethical background, are you going to use their personal information against them ever? That is what integrity is all about. A lot of time people will come and they will say that we attended your session, we paid you full money, nothing happened to me, I am still not transformed, I'm still not changing. And that can happen because अब आपने उनको तो you told them that you have to perform yoga asanas meditation. If somebody is not doing anything, the control is not in your hand, right? So people will come from this mindset also. So as a very honest and good practicing coach, you need to understand that everybody will have their competence limitations, everybody will have their shortcomings, but you practicing everything on them should come from an integrity point of view. That whatever you are doing as a life coach in transforming their life or giving them solutions should have a proper knowledge and authenticity attached to it. Correct? So what is written in integrity here? If one of you can read it.
Coaches will represent themselves in an honest and fair manner, being knowledgeable about their particular competency and limitations. Coaches strive to be aware of their own belief systems, values, needs, and limitations, and the effect of these on their work. To the extent feasible, they attempt to clarify the roles they are performing for relevant parties and to function in accord with those roles.
Correct. So what do you understand by this, Neha?
Be honest and fair and work according to our own belief system,
Hmm.
not according to the circumstances or how other people behaves with us.
Correct. So, why are
And
we talking about integrity and ethics is basically that it is your set of rules that you are going to follow. It is not somebody else's. Even if you find different kind of clients, you don't have to worry about what background do they come from. What you need to worry about is that there is a problem that they have come with, you have the solution, and let's practice those solutions with utmost sincerity and with the knowledge and practices that you have already used only from that perspective, right? So that's what integrity is all about. Any questions in this one? Understood well? Yeah. Next part is professional responsibility. The second important ethics is that professional responsibility. So, what do you think as a coach you have an ethical responsibility, professional responsibility? Life coaching is a profession, right? It is or it is not, right? You all want to become a professional someday in life coaching. So when we are following that life coaching as a professional responsibility, what are the responsibilities we need to ensure that we are following? None of you go to any office or something? I'm sure most of you are working.
Not working, ma'am.
Akila also not working? Veda is working, right? Rati, you are also not working?
Ma'am,
You also do not work? I mean, professionally. Work to हम
we'll
सभी
try,
करते
ma'am.
हैं. Sorry?
We'll try, ma'am.
Are you working currently professionally or no?
Actually, I was trying one corporate tutor coach, but it's coaching only I did. It's not professionally. So, but we joined in 3 months back.
Okay.
I joined in 3 months back. So I was working, but I didn't get any salary actually.
Okay.
2 more
Yeah,
months.
at least you have that thing. So why do you think that when we work somewhere, what is our professional responsibilities we carry?
Ma'am, I didn't understand actually.
So if you are working outside somewhere for any other company, what kind of professional responsibility you should carry or you should follow?
Ma'am, my kids are crawling like anything. So I didn't hear your words properly. Please.
Anybody else?
So commitment towards the work and the whatever word we are being following that, be that.
Okay. So Nivida is saying that we must feel okay to share personal also without any hesitation. Yeah, that is also professional responsibility, but I'm totally talking about professional point of view.
So it's applicable to professional also, right? So it's applicable everywhere. So we
Sorry, I didn't get it. Your voice is coming and going in between. See, even if there is a doctor, right? A doctor has also some professional responsibility that they cannot really do anything beyond what is being told to them to do. Right? They have a barrier or they have certain limitations and they cannot cross that line. Right?
Yes.
For example, professional responsibility says uh, it's an ongoing professional responsibility. It is unsaid that you should not fall in love with your uh, clients, right? So that is your professional responsibility. That though you are dealing with emotional issues of somebody, and there are chances that you might fall for it. And falling in love does not mean for the opposite sex. Falling in love means having that emotional bond, getting into that bond of extra care where you are becoming so much attached to everything, you're becoming too much careful about everything. So professional responsibility says that our standards of ethical should not really let us go beyond where we are right now. There has to be a boundary which you need to follow. There has to be a boundary that you cannot really fall in love with. Yes, with the opposite sex also, with the same sex also, and without even from the human one-to-one perspective also. So that emotional bond, that emotional care should not really cross the barrier for any of the clients. And many of the times this is going to happen. You might have tears in your eyes. You are going to feel very emotional about somebody's background, somebody's pain, somebody's aches, somebody's problems. But you really need to understand that you cannot get attached to that person for a longer period of time. You can care for them as a coach, but you cannot really fall for the emotional attachment with that. Yeah, so Niveda, yes, that is exactly the same thing that I said, that we should not get attached to the person or even with the problem that we are solving. This has to be practiced. And how are we going to practice it? By practicing emotional quotient. Right? EQ, emotional quotient or empathy, is very, very important. See, empathy says that you put yourself into somebody's shoes to understand what is the solution of the problem. But in order to understand that, you should not fall or you should not become a prey, so that you are actually start understanding that these problems are yours. Right? Otherwise, what will happen? All the psychologists, all the psychotherapists in the world will fall for all of their patients, and there would be too much of disturbance. Right? So it's very important, especially, for emotional care coaching students, very important to understand that when you're going to take care of the concerns which relates to their emotions and their stress and their traumas, it's very important that you learn to detach yourself also. And learning to detach comes with a lot of relaxation and meditation therapies, practicing it yourself. Otherwise, every time you're going to deal with the problems, you will be the one who will be facing the burden of it in your head. You will carry all those baggage at home. You will also carry all those problems at home, and it will make your life much more difficult than what it is right now. Right? Already, हमारे पास you have so much of emotional baggage, right? Every one of us carry our own emotional baggage, our own issues and problems. Now, imagine you become a life coach and you have three new patients with three new problems. Now, these three clients with three different problems, they share their things. Now you're carrying your own emotional baggage, and plus you are carrying three more people's emotional baggage. So it would become much more difficult for you. Your own emotions is going to be very traumatic. Your own emotions are going to play the role. So you won't be able to authentically think about any solutions from that perspective. Hence, it is important to understand that you cannot take these emotional baggages from one perspective to another. And it can be learnable. It is really a learnable technique. You can really understand the detachment. You can understand how you can stay away from getting too much emotional about any of the problems and the people, both. And so you can carry it forward from there. Right? So professional responsibility says that every profession has certain responsibility, certain barriers that you should not cross. And that is what we need to practice on a day-to-day basis, especially when you are an individual coach and you need to understand what I'm going to reflect through my solving of the problems to the clients that I'm dealing with. Next आता है इसके अंदर respect for people's rights and dignity. Though all of these are interconnected with each other, but it is very important to understand that why we need to respect people's rights and dignity. Now, I told you that, I am dealing with one of the client who is a gay, right? Who comes from that background. Imagine now if I don't show any dignity or respect, I have my personal point of view that I don't like people who are gays and lesbians, but he's a client of mine. If I bring my own personal perspective into handling the emotional solution or giving the solutions to the problems, then there might be a conflict, a very big conflict, right? You will not be able to give proper and authenticated solutions to anyone if you have that personal bias in your mind. So, for a life coach, for any good life coach, it is very important to see a human's life in totality. Right? You need to understand that there are different kind of people who will come to you. There are different kind of people who are available. Everybody everybody has the right to be treated from very high dignity and respect, no matter what background. So this I talked about sexual orientation. Now there are people who might come to you who may not have a very rich background. They may not be from a very financial sound background, or they might be Dalits, or they might be from a different caste altogether, right? They might be untouchables also. Matlab people we call, I think, untouchables, right? So now, do you think you won't be able to carry forward your life coaching with these people? Will you ask them what is your caste and what is your creed and what background do you come from, what religious thoughts you have? We don't generally ask that. And it is always advisable that as a life coach, when you're dealing with somebody's problem, it's always good that we never even ask these questions or never get to know about these things. because unconsciously the biases comes once we start getting to know more about their cultural background and biases, right? So that is a stereotype which is there in our mind from so many years. And what happens is this particular bias starts coming in when we are dealing with people's problems, right? For example, a very simple example: how many of you have housemaids at home, maids who come to help you in your day-to-day responsibility? You have a house help, the maid who comes to you for help?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Everyone, right?
Yes.
And how many of you still practice that they should not be drinking in the same glass or mug that we use for
No.
ourselves?
She'll use us only.
In some families, it is still a practice that's going on. Maybe not because of you want to do it, but maybe because our parents taught us and our grandparents taught us, right? So that untouchability is still going on and on. I don't know from how long. And since you are practicing it at your home, there are chances that even after you become a good life coach, you will still practice it on the clients that you're going to deal with. And it will come unconsciously. You won't even get to know about it that you are practicing it. Right? So it's always good that, start taking people as just humans, plain humans. No gender, no sexual orientation, no cultural differences, no religious background, no caste and creed. See, again, coming from spiritual background, coming from that perspective where you are learning yoga and meditation says that humans are just humans. Everything else that we have created, their roles, the way they have to perform, whatever clothes they have to wear, is all human, designed and decided by human for our convenience. Right? Nobody decided, nobody, there is nothing written in Upanishad anywhere that it's only women's responsibility to cook for the entire family. Nowhere it is written. In fact, it is written that once a woman is giving birth to a child, it is the responsibility of the man of the house and the family members to look after her. So to look after her, matlab, her responsibility becomes to look after the children only, and rest of the household work becomes a responsibility of either the husband or the family members. Right? And this is very much clearly written in our Vedas and Upanishads. Other than that, nowhere in the history of our backgrounds, it is written that it is primary responsibility of women to cook. Right? Because cooking is not really a responsibility; it is a life skill. Everybody should know about it, right? It is not really necessary that a man cannot stay alone. Imagine now somebody who doesn't know cooking and they have to stay alone for 3 years or 4 years. How are they going to survive? For how long they can eat from outside? Right? So it's very important, becomes that life skills. Hence, it is very important that we start detaching ourselves from all the stereotypes, all the biases, all the conflicts that arises in humanity and designed by humans, and understand that we were just created plainly as humans. And once we are dealing with emotional problems of humans or any other problems of humans, we need to give them solutions also like a human, getting detached from all these things. The only principle that we work and follow in life coaching is dignity and respect. Everybody has a right of dignity. That means you are giving them equal responsibility, equal amount of respect that you want for yourself, and respect obviously is automatically given. Right? But before you actually follow that, it's very important that we slowly remove our biases also. Right? Next are the harassment. Harassment is a word which is used largely for in sexual context also, but from behavioral harassment also it can be really traumatic for a lot of clients where we start using the information against them, right? In a demeaning way. For example, you get to know somebody's problem, you get to know about somebody's background and somebody's problem, but you keep also, for example, let's say that somebody is very fat and they have come to you for a solution, and I want to lose weight and I want to understand what is stopping me from losing my weight. Right? So you might give them different emotional care coaching, you might give them different kind of yoga asanas and meditation so that they can practice and start understanding what is wrong with them in order to lose weight. Now you know that the person is very fat, right? The harassment word says here that you might start calling that person unknowingly, with the slang languages like mota, moti, all these things that we generally call people. So it is very important that harassment of any kind in your behavior should not be there. You are not demeaning any of your client by saying unknowingly or knowingly harassing them for whatever wrong they carry with themselves. Right? It's a very general example I have given. इसके अलावा भी you people generally get to engage themselves in very different kind of behaviors where they start triggering more emotional traumas in other people by demeaning them. So it's very important. Unconsciously, again, I'm saying that unconsciously, a lot of biases starts playing in our mind when we are dealing if we have not corrected them ourselves. Right? So that's very important that you need to learn the art of detachment from all these traumas, all these issues that we have to handle. Any questions in this?
No, ma'am.
No? Understood well? Okay.
Understood, ma'am.
Then आता है unfair discrimination. Now, what is unfair discrimination?
What is discrimination, ma'am?
You tell me what is discrimination? You can search it on the internet, find out what is the exact meaning of discrimination.
Treating people in different manner based on anything like age, their sex, or religion, caste.
Yeah. So anything, where you are dealing, you're telling people and you're dealing with them and discriminating between them in terms of their age, in terms of their sex, their orientation, racial discrimination, the one that we were just talking about for harassment. So any of these things. Yeah. So Niveda says it says treating different. Correct. So however, we are dealing with people and we are discriminating in them. So for example, major discrimination that happens in society is male and female. सबसे ज़्यादा, that's the biggest discrimination we have against. So for example, the way we teach our kids also that this is not your work to be done, this is a girl child who should be performing these kind of duties, this is a responsibility that a male child should be doing. Why do we have this discrimination? That has to be understood, right? So discrimination starts from there and it goes on and on. So we have caste differentiations, we have caste creed based differentiations, we have sex based differentiations, so many things keeps happening. So now as per the rules of life coach, it says that you do not have to bring that unfair discrimination to anybody, right? It is again related to the last point that we discussed, that any person who is coming to you should not be really giving them that harassment because they come from a different kind of a background altogether, right? That's what Niveda, I said that harassment and see, harassment is basically you are treating somebody very very in a demeaning way, and discrimination means that you are discriminating in between them purely. There is no harassment involved, but it's just that because your biases are there in your mind, so you're showing your bias.
Showing partiality.
Yes, showing partiality, correct. So, and it comes automatically, you don't have to really go into that particular stage. So again, you have to learn how you can actually stay away from these kind of things. So for example, you go out, say, suppose you become a teacher. Now you join a school. Do you ask all your students which background are they from, and you're discriminating in your students also from the point of view of that they come from different castes, they are from different religions, they have different belief systems. We cannot do that, right? That's not the job of the teacher. Your job is, you have been given a responsibility to teach them, to make them understand the subject. You need to cover the syllabus, you give them good ethical values, and you come out, right? That's what the teacher's job is. Similarly, life coach's responsibility is basically to understand that you cannot discriminate. Whoever have come to you, they have come to you for a problem. You have knowledge and content with you. You have some tools and techniques which you have learned over a period of time. Your job is to transform their life using these tools and techniques and knowledge and content. Simply. Right? Other than that, knowing about their backgrounds and everything is really, really do not matter. Right? You cannot say to a client that you are Dalit, so I am not going to touch you. Right? You cannot sit on the chair next in front of me. You have to give them, you have to treat them with respect. You cannot discriminate and you cannot harass that person. So these 3 points are very, very integrally attached to each other. Now, very, very important discrimination, again, very common example of discrimination is, people have discrimination with, they all want, once you see any matrimonial site or any matrimonial ad, what they say, that they want fair, good looking, slim girl for their boy jaisa bhi lagta, no matter how the man is looking or how the boy is looking, but their only demand is they want fair, slim, and young girl. Just imagine. And this is the biggest discrimination that they ask for. Has God created all the women in just fair complexion? No. Right? Is the man himself is very fair that he's asking for that kind of a thing? No. Now, slim is again something. You are slim right now, but what is the guarantee that you will not have weight after you got married? Right? So these are the discrimination that is very, very popular, very, very what do you call it, stereotypical, and people really talk about it. These become stigmas. I don't understand, right? A country like Africa where everybody is dark complexion, do you think they do not have beauty out there? They have so many beautiful women out there with wonderful features, with wonderful knowledge, with wonderful background that they come from, right? So our complexions, how we look slim or fat, or how we are in terms of our age, cannot define what we carry with us. Right? These are very superficial things. For somebody also who is very fair, do you think that these kind of things can sustain for longer period of time? How long will your beauty will be carried forward with you? Right? For few years, then after that, everything is going to wither out. Right? So it's very important to understand that these are very superficial discriminations that happens in the society. So let go of them and consider everybody, and carry forward your emotional, what do you call it? Emotional quotient, emotional empathy from the perspective that one human is connecting to another human. That's all. Right? So that's the whole perspective. Yes, Niveda, the same that we do can be called as harassment after marriage also. Correct. So we are not discussing about marriage only here, that, people do that, but, generally what happens is people carry discrimination, I don't know for how long, in everything. So many things we carry, so many discrimination, and because these discriminations have been taught to us by our own parents or our grandparents, somewhere from our family, our society also, people who are close to us, so I tell you, one of the family that I know and I work with very closely is, they have two daughters, right? So one is very fair and the other one is little darker. And the parents only keep talking about that we will not have problems in getting married the fair one, but we will have problems in getting the dark one. And I keep telling them, why do you discriminate? Why do you talk like that? If she's born, her, first of all, any woman who has taken birth, the ultimate end is not marriage. Marriage is not the only solution that you have to find. The first is that you have to give them proper education, give them a complete foothold that they can carry forward their professional responsibilities equally well, not just personal responsibility in a household. Right? So these discriminations are such, I don't know, integral part of our life that we don't even understand that they exist. Right? But when you become a doctor, imagine a doctor telling that I am not going to operate a patient because this person looks really, really fair and I am dark. Is it going to work for a doctor? Right? It is not. So similarly, the other way around, it is not going to work. So they have taken an oath that they are going to consider each and every human beings purely as human beings, and similar code of conduct of ethics works for all the life coaches, all the coaches around the world. Imagine now these players who are there, the cricketers, right? So now there are 12 cricketers. Are these 12 cricketers look alike? Somebody is short, somebody is very tall, somebody is fat, somebody is not really very fat, somebody is dark, and somebody is not. Some comes from different background, different caste, different religion, but there is only one coach who is giving them coaching to all 12 people. Right? Imagine now this coach starts discriminating that I am not going to teach this person, or I'm not going to treat this person really well because this person comes from a very different caste. I'm not going to touch the same bat that he has touched. I'm not going to touch the same ball that he has touched. Imagine the kind of coaching that will happen. So there goes an unconscious bias. To remove that unconscious bias, there is an ethical code of conduct which is in place that we all have to follow. And this particular code of conduct says that the unfair discrimination has to stop, and no life coach should mention these kind of things, and they should not create their work related activities around these. Right? Understood? So let's take a 5 minutes break, 10 minutes break, and then come back and join.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So
ma'am.
it's
Okay,
7 o'clock right now by my watch. So 7:10 we join back and then we'll continue.
Okay, ma'am.
All right. You all are back. Let's start.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the next one that we are now going to talk about is misuse of coaches' influence. Right? What kind of influence we can have on people, our judgment on information about people, what we know about their things related to personal, financial, their social standing, their organizational, the professional setup that they work with, or any of their political influence. Right? If we get to know of this, it's very important that we do not use any of such information against the client in any which manner. Right? In fact, all the psychologists, psychotherapists, and doctors sign an agreement basically that they are not going to use any of the information that they have got to know during the entire period of time with anybody else outside. Just between it remains between the person and the client, or usually for the person and the patient. So similar thing happens to coaches also, that as a coach you need to follow this important code of conduct that none of the information that you have should be used against them at any point in time. Right? Next, last आता है इसके अंदर records and information management. So record information management is that you need to understand that some of the things you need to keep in record regarding people's problems, so that anything becomes I mean, sometimes you have to retrieve those files, sometimes you have to retrieve those records. Again, these records and information management should happen in compliance with the ethics code. So in India, we follow a code that none of the things that is being stored should remain in storage for more than 7 years. So after a client has come to you, you can keep their records for 7 years, and then after that, you need to destroy it. Right? So similar thing. So it's very important. See, the information management and records management should happen in a manner that it is not to be disclosed outside. Even by mistake, any such information about anybody goes outside, then it can become a problem for the person. Hence, as a life coach, it's very important that what you're dealing with is a very sensitive information, and all kind of sensitive information needs to be guarded with a proper care. Right? So that is very important. So these 2 points again talks about this only, that do not misuse any of the information and keep the record straight, so that only you can have the access to all that. Right? So all the records that I keep for my clients are basically in a hard drive stored in a different manner. None of my family members also have access to that hard drive. So it's very written confidential and nobody can actually use it other than me. Right? And you can only retrieve that information for your clients. For example, somebody similar comes to you, some similar problems, then you can always go back and see what kind of solution you gave, what kind of things you did. Or the same person comes back to you after 5 years and says that, I'm still facing that problem. Usually, in cases of depression and stress and anxiety, there are chances that people might come back to you after 3-4 years if they do not heal properly during that time. So then you have to retrieve that information and see whether you can actually use it, what kind of techniques you can change, what was the prescription, because as a professional, you won't remember what did you teach them at that time or what did you tell them at that point in time. So these records and information management is going to just help you out in retaining if you want to do that. Correct? So these are the ethical codes of things that you need to follow as a life coach, very importantly. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Then I move on to the next topic, which is related to this one.
Ma'am, for a life coach career, any other courses or any other techniques is
ICC
required,
gives
or
a bigger certification. But see, as per me, this certification is good enough if you want to practice, especially for
okay.
yoga life coaches. But ICC gives us a separate coaching certification to make you coach. That's all. And that ICC certification is worldwide acceptable. But that's only for the
And
life
any-
coaches. It does not include yoga and meditation coaches. That's the only side effect.
And any
Life coaching is
other,
different from yoga.
Yes, life coaching. See, again, life coaching has various techniques that people use. So, like, Akriti and Santosh, the students that we have in this class, they are using emotional care coaching as a tool and technique for managing life. I mean, people's giving solutions to people's problems. You all are actually using yoga and meditation or relaxation techniques to help people out. So you become, so this course basically we designed in the YSI, we designed these two courses keeping in mind that people will come to you only for emotional care problems. So that's why we started this certification in emotional care coaching. So emotional care was taught to them by a professional, which is Dr. Usha, and then life coaching was taught by me because we have a certification, right? So similarly for life, for yoga, life coaching, we had a practitioner, Kavita ma'am, who is a renowned yoga practitioner because he has a PhD in that area. And then life coaching we are including so that you become a better life coach. So yoga is basically, yoga instructors are people who can just teach you asanas, that do this, do that, all that thing. But when you become a life coach using yoga and meditation, you actually can cater to larger people. Right? Now, like I said, you can in fact heal them, or you can help them come out of their emotional problems also. You can help them from spiritual problems also. So many different wide perspective of yoga and meditation you can use as a life coach. Right? And when we talk about life coach's major work is basically to find out a collaboration, a partnership with their client. in order to understand. It's not instructional only, right? Generally, teaching kya hota hai? Teaching is very instructional. We give them the steps of asanas, perform asanas, and go back home. Life coaching is connecting with their problems, not emotionally, but connecting in a manner that you are transforming them, and you can see whether their transformation is happening also or not. Correct? So that's the different techniques. And most of the yoga instructors across the world do not use any of the life coaching tools. Most of them, right? So that is the reason why we wanted to design this separate course altogether. And people who did this certification last year, I mean, in the last batch, 3 of them are doing wonderfully good in terms of becoming a life coach. One has become a proper yoga life coach in a school. She was earlier doing as a yoga instructor, but then she called herself yoga life coach and she's doing wonderfully well. So this is how you can see. So even we are connected. I mean, me and Neeraj sir ensures that even in HR, when I take classes or in this life coaching classes that I take, we ensure that we are connected with everybody throughout the lifetime. This is not just one-time course for 6 months or 2 months that we are associated with. We are going to be there for the lifelong, so that you have any problems. All the WhatsApp groups also still exist. So you have problem, come back. You have our numbers also. You can come back and ask any questions, anything that you have a problem with, or you want to take a solution. You can really do that. Also, life coach pay, there is very beautiful thing that you can actually use different kind of techniques. So it's not limited to only yoga and meditation and emotional care. You can later on, like, we talked about EFT techniques, we talked about mandala therapies, different kind of things, art as a form of therapies in life coaching. So various kind of things you can use.
Ma'am, what is that? Art?
Art, any kind of art.
Not
It can
any
be
kind of art.
painting or mandala, anything. Even painting also can become a wonderful tool for life coaching.
Yes, ma'am.
Because it brings relaxation. So as per your interest, as per your strength, right? Whatever is your passion and strength, you can actually take that tools and techniques as a life coach. Just ensure that you use these models and styles so that your everything looks very professional. People should take you seriously. They should start taking you as a professional, because you are dealing with them, showing them your transformation is happening from stage 1 to stage 3, from stage 3 to stage 7. You can show them that this is how you are transforming, this is how your change is happening, this is how. So next week, we will talk about how the change management happens when we do life coaching. We will talk about that from the management perspective, how we actually see the changes happening in the organization, in people, in life coaching, different perspectives. I will give you. Right? So this is about ethics. Now, when we are talking about this topic of unconscious bias, I thought I'll just show you this thing also. Let me just give you a little bit more overview of what unconscious biases are. So this is something I found on internet. We generally use this in our classes also in HR when we talk about performance management, because biases in HR also is very common, right? So in life coaches also a lot of biases can happen. And what are these unconscious bias that we are going to talk about is, so unconscious biases basically is this particular slide. So what is unconscious bias? You can read it. Any one of you can read it and you can understand this pretty well. Who wants to read it? Akriti, you want to? Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Yes,
Rati,
ma'am.
go ahead. So let Rati read. It's okay. She wanted to.
Unconscious biases or implicit biases are attitudes that are held subconsciously and affect the way individuals feel and think about others around them. Subconscious attitudes aren't necessarily as well formed as coherent thoughts, but they can be very ingrained. Many people have unconscious biases that have been with them since childhood, which they observe by observing their social, familial, and institutional environment. Unconscious biases can color the emotional and rational responses of individuals in everyday situations and affect their behavior.
Right. Go ahead. There are many types of unconscious bias. Yeah.
Yes. 1 minute. There are many types of unconscious biases. Some of the most common are biases in how individuals record their own thought process and reasoning abilities, such as focusing on negative qualities of individuals that align with one's existing attitudes, like an confirmation biases and affirmation biases.
Right. Right. So what do you understand by this? Right. These are few conscious and unconscious biases that comes to us through our society. Implicit and explicit. Implicit in the sense people have been teaching us about these things since very, very long time. And that's why we have this. So this untouchability, this religious, culturally different background, caste differentiation, fair and dark complexions, all these things are very, very limited unconscious bias that has been included in us from, I don't know, ages. And problem is that even when we realize that these are unconscious bias, we also do not stop. Right? We call a blind man an andha. Why do we call a blind man an andha? We all know that the person cannot see. He or she is blind. Then why are we calling them andha again and again? So this is again an unconscious bias that we keep using. And how do we use this unconscious bias unknowingly is that even if you have eyes and I want to say that you can't see properly, I will say, why are you becoming like andha? Why are you behaving like an andha? So it's like it has become a slang. It has become a gali to somebody. Why are we using somebody's incapability of seeing or visually impairedness as a gali to use that, right? For example, many people use mental retardedness as gali again. That if you do something which is not showing your intelligence, people say that why are you behaving like a retard person? Is it the right kind of language? Is it the right kind of treatment? Is this the right kind of things that we are speaking? So unconsciously, these things are stored in our brain for so long that we don't even realize while speaking that we are making a mistake. Right? So we are going to talk about these 13 kind of biases here, that are 16 kind of biases, in fact, which we generally show. We talk about this as in workplace, but otherwise in our life also we have this particular. So number one is affinity bias. Affinity bias basically happens when you are looking into the similar kind of similarity in people. How you are, you want to see the other similar, the similar interest, similar experiences, similar backgrounds in other people. Right? This becomes affinity bias. For example, now suppose you are going out and somebody tells you that they are from the same village as you are, or they are from the same place as you are, you tend to find a bond with them unknowingly, right? And people who are not from a similar background, similar village, or similar caste and creed, you generally have that similar little unconscious bias in your head, right? So this affinity bias says that why are we looking at people with same interests, experience, and backgrounds? Why not we accept the people how they are completely? Then confirmation
Meaning
bias.
in bias, ma'am. What is the
Sorry?
meaning? What is the meaning in bias?
The bias, meaning of bias,
Bias.
you are saying.
Bias,
So bias is partiality, that you become partial towards somebody.
Partiality. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So you become unknowingly partial towards, and you give somebody more preference than the other person. So that's called bias, right? So second
Okay.
bias is basically confirmation bias. Now confirmation bias, iska definition kya hai? Confirmation bias is the inclination to draw conclusions about a situation, right? For example, with a policeman, you had a very bad example once, right? You had a very bad follow with any policeman, right? Now, what is the prejudice? What is the unconscious bias that we have carried is that all policemen are corrupt. All policemen are not good. They do not come, they are not important in our life. They come late. They are lazy. They are whatever. They eat money or, whatever we think about them. So that becomes a confirmation bias that purely on one perspective or purely because you had one personal uh, situation where something like this happened, you cannot generalize that thing for the entire community. Right? Another very common confirmation bias is that, Biharis talk like that. That Biharis are, the religious bias are very common. That Punjabis are the ones who keeps dancing all the time, something like this. So Biharis talk in a similar language. So many religious bias happens in India that South Indians are typically like that. So people generally have this thing in their mind, and this is called confirmation bias, right? They do not have, they have just one or two experiences, one or two people, and somehow they keep carrying it for a long time period. Correct? Understood
This
this
is
step?
from their past experience, ma'am.
Yes. So anything, maybe just in a situation it has happened for a momentarily time period, and because they have that personal desire, belief systems, and it does not really fall back with somebody else, it becomes confirmation bias, right? Then other attribution bias. Now, attribution bias is basically a phenomena where you try to make sense or judge a person's behavior based on prior observations and interactions you have with that individual. So sometimes what happens is the first impressions are not very great impressions of somebody. Right? So, for example, let's take an example of teacher-student relationship. If a student has come late in the class, a teacher, generally create a bias that the students always comes late without even thinking. With just one instance, and they have created a perception about this person that this student is going to come late all the time, right? So for example, some of you did not give presentation, right, on the very first assignment. Now if I form an unconscious bias around you that because you did not give a good presentation, or you did not even appear for the presentation first time, with what, because of whatsoever reason, and you're not going to give any such presentations in the future, right? I always telling you, or I always keep you giving you that taunt or comment that, Neha is never going to give a presentation, right? So this becomes attribution bias, that purely on one interaction, purely on one observation, you have started treating somebody like with that. Again, unconsciously it comes. So these are unconscious bias all. We don't even know that it happens with us. Then conformity bias, number 4. It says that people have the tendency to act similar to the people around them, regardless of their own personal beliefs and idiosyncrasies, also known as peer pressure. So, for example, what happens, especially in the workplaces, what happens is that you completely forget about your own experiences, completely your own personal beliefs, but you start following the bigger group, larger group, right? For example, a very basic example is, even if you like Salman Khan, but because most people like Shah Rukh Khan, you will always start saying that Shah Rukh Khan is a better actor, right? Because more popular beliefs goes towards that. Right? So these are conformity bias, where you are very scared that you might be considered outside of the society, or you might be considered an outsider. You might not fall into that similar group. Hence, unconsciously, you also start showing conformity bias purely because of the peer pressure or the people who are around you. So peer pressures are basically people you hang out with or you go out with socially. So, for example, even in families also it happens, right? You understand that untouchability is a problem in India. You understand that you do not show. If after this class, I'm sure some kind of consciousness will come to you when you are showing these biases towards somebody, right? And the more you practice it, the more you can really handle them well. So now, even if your mother-in-law or somebody in your family, somebody senior is showing that kind of a bias, you somehow will judge in your mind that why are they showing it, right? But because you're so scared of them, because you will, if even if you speak out, or you think that, if you say something, your opinion will not really be considered, so you will just fall prey to whatever they are saying. That what they are saying and doing is perfectly all right, so let's do that. Another example of conformity bias is that, the PMS that we go with, the menstruation cycle that we all follow. So during menstruation, you should not touch any of the char. What is the logic behind that? Any logics? Anything that you have found out? Right? There is no logic that you cannot touch any of the jars. But still, our mother-in-laws, our grandparents, everybody has taught us that don't touch the achar. It's a very popular belief during menstruation that you should not touch and it will spoil. So now what is the basis? We don't know the basis. But it's just that people have been following it, so we also fall prey to that. We don't touch it. We don't go to the kitchen. Some household. In some families, they don't even let any of the women go inside the kitchen. It's always a good thing to give rest, but not going into the kitchen, I really do not make it doesn't make sense, right? So these are confirmative bias. So with biases, they generally happen because of the pressure of the people who are around. Virus and bacteria
Ma'am,
spread during PMS. That's what you're saying, Niveda. No, no, nothing happens. I always eat achar. I have a very, very strong, generally, whenever I am on my periods, I have very strong urge to eat achar. So I always eat achar and nothing happens to my achar. My mother-in-law makes wonderful achars and she only serves me. So we don't follow. So this is all illogical things which has been going on. I don't know for how long without any logic. I try to find logics in our Vedas and Upanishads so far. Whatever I have learned, I have asked few people also, but the logics are never being shared. During our
ma'am,
periods,
once,
we need to understand that we are at our purest form. Right. As per Upanishads and Vedas, we are the most purest human being during that time. And because we feel pain, and this pain is equivalent to the pain which we face while we are giving birth to the child. And that is why it was written that women should be given a complete rest for these 4 days. Right? That's the only logic, again, written anywhere. After that, how it turned out to so many superstition is all illogical. Completely. Yes, Akriti was saying something.
ma'am, once I thought about the reason behind it, then I think most of the girls or few girls I know, including me, eating achar during periods causes severe stomach ache
No,
or pain.
nothing happens.
So I think they made this norm so that for me, ma'am, if
For
I
you,
eat
yeah.
achar or anything like that, then
Right. So for
there is
many people,
severe
it
pain
works
during
like
my.
that. Correct. So there are different things that happens to
Yes,
a
ma'am.
human
So I
body
think
during that. So some people feel very good when they eat chocolates and meetha during PMS, right? Some people do not feel like eating any kind of chocolate. So it's about individual's personality and how your taste and everything is. Right? It has nothing to do with why one thing should be stopped. So achar was one of the reasons, and they said achar gets spoiled if you touch it during your periods. So I don't understand
no,
that
that is
logic.
not correct.
Yeah, that's the superstitious which goes with that. This is what it's all about.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and that is why you won't even know. If you work towards development sector, there are so many families who are not even using sanitary pads for periods. Why they're not using sanitary pads? Because you do not collect old blood in the home. Something like that. I don't know. I heard it somewhere while we were doing some voluntary work for an NGO. Then I heard that they do not want to use any kapra or any sanitary pad because it carries the blood. So obviously, when you are flowing for 5 days, you will carry some blood in you. And this is the body's treatment of relieving you from any wastage that is happening. Right? People do not understand the logic behind why a woman is actually bleeding. So that's very important to understand and then find. So conformity bias is not just about this particular thing about periods, it's about everything else, so many different things. So we need to know that under peer pressure, we are doing so many things which needs not to be done. Say hello to everyone.
It is also watching the class.
Yeah, he comes to get the malish done. Okay, right. So this is the conformity bias. Then the next bias, which happens very commonly again, this is the third one, right? The fourth is halo effect. The halo effect is very common. It happens very, very commonly with everyone. It is basically the tendency that we have to place another person on a pedestal after learning something impressive about them. So, Akrit, you have heard about this, right? You have learned about this in HR class. So you can explain this.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't remember.
Ma'am, please give me a hint.
पढ़ो ये. This is written here.
Ma'am, in my screen, it is okay.
What is hello in English? I mean, what do we understand by when we say hello as a word? Halo is basically that circle that you see around gods and Jesus Christ. That individual, in that bright light like a circle, that's called halo.
What is that, ma'am?
So, ma'am,
If you have seen
not
pictures
giving.
of Jesus Christ or any god, especially in Christianity, they generally show. So they show Jesus Christ with any angel basically with that round thing on their head. That's called halo, right? So halo effect is basically that you are looking for some godly or maybe some very different kind of qualities in somebody, right? And if you don't find it in them, then it becomes a conscious bias. That's all. Unconscious bias. Yeah, Kriti, you were saying something. Please carry on. Yeah, it's like an aura, circle of aura, Niveda, correct? But that actually shows gods in a different light. We generally use it to show angels and gods in a different light. That they are not similar to humans, right? That's why we use it. So hollow effect also is similar. That we keep looking in for some different kind of quality. I don't know why. Maybe just to see that they are more impressive than anybody else in the entire group, and then this effect start coming. Right?
It is pedestal, ma'am. Pedestal.
Yeah. So we keep them in a pedestal where we want to see them as totally different. Then आता है Horn's effect. Now Horn's effect is the similar to hollow effect but exactly opposite. In hollow effect, we keep looking for positive qualities or we want to see something totally impressive. In Horn's effect, we want to see something very unpleasant and very negative about them, unknowingly. Right? For example, now if I'm meeting Rati for the first time and I say that, Rati used to look like this in the class, used to behave like this. I want to see some impressive quality in Rati which she might have shown or might not have shown, right? And that becomes a conscious bias, unconscious bias, unknowingly, without having any logic to it, without having any meaning to it. It just comes automatically sometimes, right? Purely because our mindset says that for Akriti, I need to look for something negative, something or the other, just because I don't like her. And why I don't like her, I don't know. So that becomes that. So that becomes Horn's effect. So liking and disliking purely because you feel like doing that. That becomes Hollow and Horn's effect. Now contrast effect. So the contrast effect is when you compare two things, right? So like the name suggests that you're comparing it with somebody or the other. And that becomes a very difficult thing. For example, contrast effects happens in families a lot of time. That you have more than two children or you have two children, you keep comparing one children to another. That your brother was not like that, you are like that. That your neighbor is not like that, you are like that. So this contrast effect again comes unconsciously and unknowingly we are treating our children in doing comparisons all the time in their entire life. The only comparison that should happen in a child or anybody for that matter is how we were tomorrow, yesterday, and what we have to become tomorrow to become much more better than what we are. Right? That's how transformation also happens, right? If you have to change something in you, how are you going to manage that change? How are you going to look into that change? If suppose you have to let go of any old habit of yours or you want to change any bad habit of yours, how are you going to see whether you have left that habit or not? Tell me, how are you going to do that? This is a question to everyone.
We will check whether we are tempted to do that work again, that habit again.
Right. Correct. But how have you left it or not? How are you going to manage that entire period?
I mean, how are we going to manage to leave it, you're asking?
Yeah, whether we have left it, this habit or not.
Through
Putting
self-control, ma'am.
ourselves in the same situation.
Right? You're going to put yourself in the same situation, right? So your own bad habit that you want to leave, you're not going to compare it with others, right?
Yes.
Right? So how are you going to manage it, or how are you going to ensure that the change has happened or the performance has happened or anything has happened is purely comparing what you were yesterday and how you have become today. So from your own past performance, you are managing that, or from your own past situations, you are dealing with that, correct? So the contrast effect basically tells that you need not to have a comparison outside somewhere. You need to have a comparison, even if you want to make on your productivity and performance, is purely looking into yourself. Yeah, correct, Niveda. So if you have to leave coffee, correct, we will be taking it on the same time and see whether we really want to have it or not, is contrast effect, right? So that's basically is the changing in ourselves that we see. But how we do right now, how we look into the change in somebody, suppose I have to tell my son that you need to do better in your studies, how I'm going to do the comparison, that your classmates are doing much better, the class topper is doing much better, so you need to do better. What kind of comparison is this? It does it make sense? It doesn't, because you don't know what is the class topper's qualities, what family background do they come from, how are the parents teaching, whether he or she is going to tuitions, what extra he or she has, their intelligence level may differ. So many things can differ, right? So how are you going to say that you have to do perform better is by comparing them with their own percentages or marks, that you did not do good in mathematics last session. Let's work hard, let's understand what is the problem, and let's do better than that, right? That's how we actually map growth. But how are we doing it right now is using this contrast effect unknowingly, which is very, very traumatic for a child. Yes, Niveda, very good. So with his own marks, previous test, good, right? So do not, again, this comes unconsciously without even knowing. We start comparing. So very another common example of contrast effect is that my neighbor has better TV than me, my neighbor has better looking car than me, all those things, my office mates have better cars, we earn similar kind of money. But you don't know, even if you are earning similar kind of money or the same package you are at, same designation, your family has 3 members, his family has 20 members, so that entire salary is going into that. So how can you compare? Right? So there is no comparison that can happen, no contrast that can happen between two people. Hence, this biases in itself is very irrelevant, right? But we still do it. So just ensure when you're teaching your teacher, I mean, you're teaching your kids or you're dealing with your kids, do not let this contrast bias come to. Then gender bias, very common, very popular, right? Let's not discuss it even. We know that what kind of gender biases we have. You need to cook, you need to look after kids, you need to perform all those household duties is general common bias that we all face as a woman. And similarly for men, they cannot cry, they cannot show their emotions in public. They are the only ones who have to go out and earn money are very common things. Again, nowhere it is written it's only the man who has to go on and earn money. Right? It's the responsibility of the whole family to go out and earn money as such if you have to live a very good life. So every human being here on earth goes through this particular gender bias here, and it comes unconsciously, trust me. Even if you say that you believe in feminism, or you believe that you are all the women should be empowered, still kahin na kahin that gender bias comes. Like the moment you tell your kid not to cry because you are a boy is a gender bias. Right? The moment you tell your boy that you cannot wear pink color is a unconscious gender bias. The moment you tell your baby girl that you need to play only with dolls and kitchen sets, that's an unconscious bias or gender bias. Right? So all these things comes automatically. We don't even think about it. We think it's so general. but it is an unconscious bias. So try and remove that slowly, and you will look after it. So, we took a lot of training, we took a lot of time in removing all these biases, and that's why very authentically, even if you have worked on it, sometimes it comes. It cannot be removed because for 20, 25, 30 years, whatever your mind has taken from society and people, it takes huge amount of time and effort to let go of all this. Then aata hai ageism. Ageism is another bias that comes automatically with us, that we believe that older people cannot perform some duties and younger people can perform some duties better, right? That older people have more wisdom and younger people cannot have that wisdom. So these are unconscious bias, right? Older people can have lesser wisdom also because they have not experienced the world. A younger person who has traveled a lot, who have gone to various cultures, who have been to various countries can have better wisdom, right? They might have better experiences. So why we say that older people have more wisdom is purely because we think that they have seen the world. But somehow, if somebody has not gone out, they have stayed in one city, they have worked for one only company, they have stayed in one family, not moved out, not traveled much, how can they have more wisdom? And in comparison, if you have somebody who has gone out more, who has more wisdom, has traveled a lot, has seen various culture, has more skills. So this is an unconscious bias that comes, especially in the offices, it comes in household, it comes in society, it comes automatically. Again, to do with age, right? Simple one. Then name bias. Again, we have this very common thing called name bias. Right? If we find out that somebody has a different kind of name altogether, we start judging that person unknowingly. Right? If somebody has a very beautiful name, again we have unconscious bias. Normal bias. Beauty bias again, fair, not fair, fat, not fat, thin, too much thin. I don't know how many things goes with beauty. People do not even look at the interior characteristics of people, they just look at the outer beauty, which, so that's a stigma. And it has come, looking into a lot of movies, this entire celebrity thing that a woman should be very thin in order to look good. The healthiness is only when people should be very thin and they have the 26, 28 waist inches waist. So, so these are very, very normal unconscious bias that has been inculcated in us since a very long time, and it discriminates. We discriminate, right? We find people, only certain people, very attractive. I don't know why. People can become so attractive with the way they talk, the way they actually behave, the way their intelligence, they can speak about various topics. So that's what the entire beauty should be talking about, not just about how a person looks from outer side. So that's the beauty bias, again, that is very common. Then height bias, again, height. Short heighted people, we have a very common bias against short and tall heighted people, right? So let's not even talk about it, but that's an unconscious bias again. Anchor bias basically talks about that. How do I explain this one? So anchor bias basically talks about if you hold on to one particular perspective of something and you are also comparing it with somebody else. Yes, body shaming and mimicry comes under beauty bias, Niveda. Very true. Now we're talking about anchor bias. So anchor bias basically talks about the kind of biases we have when we are dealing with groups specifically. So for example, right, I'm teaching you 6 students, right? And all 6 are from different kind of backgrounds, different kind of things. And I find that, in my class, Niveda gives best answers. And I start comparing everybody else from whatever answers Niveda is giving, whether those answers are correct or incorrect. But just because she is always vocal, she always comes out and speaks, So I start comparing other students with that why not Rati speaks much, why not Akila is talking too much. So that anchor bias says that you are holding on to one particular characteristics of one person and then comparing all other with just that. So maybe, some people might consider giving answers as most intelligent thing. So I will consider that Niveda is the most intelligent than others. Maybe Akriti is more vocal than others, right? So these are the kind of unconscious bias, anchor bias that we carry purely because we are comparing one characteristics with other things from the group. Then non-verbal biases are basically non-verbal communications, which is attributed such as body language, right? So how people generally shake hands, how they fold arms, all these things, kaise eye contact bana rahe, somebody is looking at us. So even if somebody has very large eyes and they do not really have the capability of, doing, what do I say? पलकें चिपकाना जिसको कहते हैं ना इंग्लिश में हाँ how they blink their eyes, right? So some people have this problem that they cannot blink their eyes that often that we generally do, right? So we find that this person is actually staring at us, we will feel that way. So that's an unconscious non-verbal bias without even knowing that whether the person has some problem or he or she might be facing some other challenges. We start believing that that person is staring at us and we start judging that person on that attribute. So this thing happens very commonly with people who show non-verbal biases. For example, you are meeting and talking to somebody, and suddenly you see that this person is not paying attention to you. So you will find that non-verbal bias that this person is either fidgeting with their hair or with keys or doing something which shows that this person is not listening to you. But some people find it comfortable. If they are fidgeting with somebody, that means they are paying more attention to your talks, even if they are not looking into your eyes, right? So these are unconscious non-verbal bias that has been included in our mannerism for so long that we consider them as important bias, important part of our lives. Then authority bias. Authority bias is basically we give more attention to an idea and opinion because we think that it has come from a very powerful figure. So, for example, if Modi ji says something because he is the prime minister, because he is from one particular religion, he keeps talking about one particular religion, we feel that whatever he says is correct, which is not the right thing to perceive somebody, right? That comes as authority bias. Right? It's not necessary that everything that our father, our teacher, our mothers have taught us are 100% correct, right? Because they are also individuals, they are also humans, they can also make mistakes. So it is not necessary that everything which some authority has told us is always correct. So that comes with that, or inaccurate for that matter, right? So authority bias says anybody who is in authority, in power, had said something and we follow that blindly without showing any resistance to that. That becomes authority bias. And that is what we are undergoing right now in terms of our political things. Overconfidence bias. Again, overconfidence bias is very common. We become overconfident even with small knowledge, knowing that we have very small content, very small knowledge. We think that we have become so powerful, we know everything. That becomes an overconfidence bias. Right? That's all. I think, yeah, these are the 13 ones. Right, so these are few of the biases, unconscious biases that comes and takes over our lives. So we need to look after this thing. Yes, authority bias also says that I can only do more than anybody. Correct. But authority bias is more from that perspective that somebody in power had said something and we follow blindly. Completely. For example, all these godmen who become godmen on their own. So Sadhgurus or Ravi Shankarji, anyone. It's not necessary that whatever they are saying is 100% correct. They also can make mistakes. They also can have a different perspective altogether. So, for example, usually Sadhguru says a lot of good things. But when it comes to women, a lot of knowledge that he has, yeah, a lot of things that he says against women is again because of unconscious bias that he follows. Right? So he says particularly that during the menstruation, women should not be doing such things. Some things, right? He had said that openly in so many forums, and people have asked him questions why he's saying that. So it's not necessary if you're an authority figure, you should not be blindly following these people. You should always use your logic, your own intelligence, your own belief systems that whatever you have studied is correct, and these governments or these people may not be followed 100%. He says so many beautiful things. So why not consider those beautiful things other than when he says these rubbish things about men women differences? Right? So always look into this perspective. Authority figures can also make mistakes, can also be wrong, and you are using your own individual intelligence in fighting this unconscious bias. So there are difficult ways of how we can deal with. There is a very popular detachment meditation which is used while, especially when we have that emotional unconscious bias which is happening against people, right? Or in order to not get too attached to people. So we will practice that detachment meditation tomorrow in the class.
Ma'am,
Yes, Rati.
please teach us meditation.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow only.
Yeah, tomorrow morning we will do. I prefer
Okay.
doing meditations during morning hours. So tomorrow we will practice. You all have your presentations, then we will do some mock sessions and meditations.
Okay. Will do.
Right? So just ensure that you're making your presentations really well.
Okay.
Okay. So see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. आज Gayatri was very quiet. Why, Gayatri? You're usually the ones who's
Actually,
in
my mobile
discussions.
has no charge, ma'am. So I'm sitting
Okay.
next to the plug point.
Okay.
So I cannot on my mic and my camera. That's the point, ma'am.
All right. No problems. Tomorrow
Okay.
you talk there. Yeah, tomorrow is your talking day and I am going to listen. All right. Any questions in today's thing? I'm sharing that presentation in the group. If you have some questions, please feel free to ask. All right. Have a good night and let's
Thank you, ma'am.
tomorrow morning. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.